So I recently made a turning. It was a Vortex Bowl, and I used these segments. I cut these on the bandsaw using a fixture that I had designed. There's the turning if you haven't seen it. But there was a request to have me show how I made this fixture. So that's what we're going to do mostly here. I'm going to show you how I made this. I designed this on a CAD program. You do not need a CAD program, but I will use that program to help show the locations of the critical parts of this fixture. You do need a way to lay out your lines accurately. Digital calipers work great, but also what would be very accurate is a set of dividers and a nice scale. You can pick the dimensions up here and then transfer them onto your workpiece. You need a way to make a straight line. The blade on that square works good. So does a piece of scrap wood that we all have. Nice straight line. You can scribe your line with it. You will need a square to make a nice perpendicular line. So that's about all we do need. I'm going to show you how I built the fixture. You're going to watch it being built. I'll show you gluing and turning the bowl itself. So this is how I made the fixture. If you do decide to make one, you're responsible for making it and using it. So let's get going. So here's what we're making. There's 12 segments in here. I only need these two to show you what we're going to do, and I'll show you why. That bandsaw is going to cut down this line. That is the only place it's going to cut. It doesn't cut here, it doesn't cut there, but you'll see why you'll get both of those cuts. And this is going to be a little later on, but I'll describe it for you. First thing we need is a base to mount everything on. I just went with 12 by 12. You also need a way to locate this on the bandsaw in the same spot every time. Most bandsaws have a slot in them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find that slot and we're going to make a little guide that you're going to fasten to the bottom of this base. And all I did was I measured from where I'm going to call the blade, which was the center of this board. I measured over, and this just has to be approximate. Whatever yours is, I'm not going to give you a dimension for that because they do vary. I also put a stop on here. So this, as far as we're going right here, I'm going to take you out to my shop and I'm going to show you the board. I'm going to show you that rail and how I put it on. So, all right, here's the piece I've picked out to be the base. I was able to get 12 inches here, but not a full 12 there. That's okay. Like I said, it really doesn't matter. And I mentioned that rail. I've already done this. I don't think I need to show you how to fasten this down, but I will show you what's really critical. And this is a starrett square. It's very accurate. As long as that edge is straight, and you have to make sure of that. I'm going to check it. It looks good. I went ahead and drilled a couple locator holes in this because I think we're going to be doing something where we have to take that off. You'll be able to put it back on some dowels and it'll be exact. There's the little stop piece. I'm going to take that. Screw tried to run away from me. And that wants to go right here. I have already put a hole in it. So what's going to happen now is this will stop on the table every time in the right spot. Let's go over to the bandsaw and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Cut a line in here. That line is going to be critical to laying out the holes. Here's the miter gauge slot that I've been talking about. And there's my little rail. I'm going to go ahead and turn the saw on. I'm going to cut until the stop comes up to the table. Okay, that's it. I'm going to go back over and show you what we're going to do with these lines. Okay, ready to put the lines on here so we can locate a couple holes. I'm going to put this square right in the middle of the line, and then I'm going to scribe a line on it. I'll just draw that down like so. I'll have a nice accurate line. If you don't have anything like that, a really sharp pencil will work. And I'll put that pencil on there just to highlight it. There's the line. You want to make the line as skinny as you can, because that's more accurate. You need to get a line this way. This is also a measuring tool that I used a lot. It's called a panel gauge, panel marking gauge. I could line that up and scribe. I now have the lines I need. You probably are not going to have a marking gauge, so all you really need to do is bring a square up here. You can mark that, you can mark this, then you can connect them together with a straight board or a square. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the vertical and horizontal lines. So this one's the vertical line, it's the horizontal line. They both intersect the tip of the bandsaw blade. Here's the holes we need to drill. The lower one is right on that horizontal center line. It's 3.629 over. The top one here, this hole, is 3.143 over, and from this center line it's 1.814 up. I used a 3/8 drill bit. You can use whatever size you want, but once you drill a hole, stay with that same drill bit because things need to fit and rotate on it. So now let's go lay this out. I'll drill these two holes and we'll move on to the next. Time to mark the holes, which I have done. The most accurate way to do it is with a set of digital calipers. These are very inexpensive. If I want to set that at 3.629, it's very easy. And right there. Once I have that dimension, 3.629, I'm using that slot. I'm just putting it in here, and then I scribed across. There's that hole. When I set this one, I do the same thing. And we'd set that one. Vertically, 1.814. Right there, from that center line, we have it. Once I have the two lines crossing, I'm going to take a very sharp pointed punch, and I'm going to get a starting point for the brad bit. So I'm ready to drill it. I'll just go ahead and we'll do that. Not going to be exciting, but I'll go ahead and drill those. Then we get on to the rotating part, and I've already decided that's the reason I'm going to take this off, so you don't have to lay those holes out. Alright, I'm over at my drill press, and I just want to point out that it's pretty critical that you use a brad tipped drill bit. And if you don't, there's no guarantee where that hole's going to end up, and I think these two holes are about as critical as anything we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and drill the first hole. And move it over and set up on the other one. There we go. That's the reason to put a nice dimple in that. Okay, that should be pretty accurate. Now we're going to build the pivoting base. That's what we put our pieces on and make the cuts. I already have those two holes drilled here, so let's use those as a drilling guide. I'm planning on using this piece of 1/2 inch. You could use up to 3/4. I wouldn't use less than 1/2. And 10 by 10 is a nice size. It doesn't have to be exact, but somewhere close to that. Find the center this direction. If it happens to be 10 inches, then that's 5. Find the center this way, which I've already done that. And you're going to draw a line down like so. And you can see that line. We're using that right now to locate this on here, and then we'll put a couple small brads in it and go ahead and drill the holes. Now if you remember this line that you created after that saw cut, and you continued it down, and then you went across this way, you just need to line that one and this one up with those lines. Pretty close, as close as you can get it. Right now it's not real critical, but just get it as close as you can. Take a little brad. This thing's probably, I don't know if you can even see it. Alright, so make sure those little marks are as close as you can get them. Take that little brad. I just want it so it won't move when we drill a hole. 2 of them's plenty. Okay, that's located there. Now we can turn this over and drill right through here. I've already removed these brads, but when you do that, here's something I'd like you to do right away. This top hole here, as I'm looking at it, need to take a little dowel, push it in there. You will not use that hole again. If you don't have the dowel in there and you accidentally use that hole, this will not work. So at this point in time, we can go ahead and put the rail back on. And that is why we drilled these 2 holes, to make sure they line up. I've got a dowel started on each end. So all I'm doing here is putting the screws back into the rail piece and reattaching the locator stop that I made. So this is the next piece we need, and what this is a locator for your segments. After you make the first cut, you'll then be rotating everything across to that. Just to show you what that looks like, if you've made your cut, you'll swing this over to here and that locates it in the proper position. You could lay this out with a 3 5/8 radius and cut it and sand it, and it would work quite well. But I'll show you what might be even easier to do. Is we're going to take a piece of plywood, 3/8, 1/2 inch or so is what I like to use. It's 5 inches this way, it's 4 1/4 that way. From this top edge, if you went over 3 1/2 and came down to 1 1/2 inches up this way and cut that out of there, that's all you need to do for now. And then from the ends, 5/8 this way, 5/8 that way, drill a 3/8 hole. So once you have that piece cut, I'm going to go out and we are going to use the fixture we just made for the very first time to create the little stop that we need. Alright, we're over at the bandsaw and I'm going to cut this little locator. This is the dowel I put in that hole that we don't ever want to use that hole again. We'll use this hole to rotate this piece on. I'm going to put that up there. There's the stop we made. You don't want that base moving. Put something on it like a little clamp. And I just like to clamp that stop there. So now that's in place. I'm going to put that in that hole. Now you want good fitting dowels. What we're going to do now is cut this. We're going to cut it real slow, just like we do the segments. And I hope that I don't block this, but we'll try. There it is. That's nice and smooth, just like what we need. Now we're almost ready to start cutting some segments. So before I fasten this locator down, I need to get a line right through the middle of this 3/8 hole. If I take my square and set it 3/16 on that edge, that's half of the 3/8 hole. Then I have a 3/16 drill bit, and it just fits in there like that. Now I'll take a sharp pencil, and I really don't need the line all the way across. The reason I need that line is this block of wood needs to be set right on that line after I put this in here. And I'll put this in. If I line this up right there, 4 1/16 even, I will now fasten this down. That's now fastened down. I'm looking at my line that I just put on there, and if I just go up and go up to the edge of the pencil line, that's going to be really close. Right there. Then I'll fasten this down. Alright, we have one more block to put on here. This is going to locate your cutting blanks. I'll give you the dimensions to make an 8-inch diameter. I've already put a mark on here. Up against wherever this hits, 2 inches. I'm going to locate that at 2 inches. Make sure that it stays square. Okay, alright, we're ready to go ahead and cut pieces with this fixture now. But before I did anything else, I put this clamp on, made sure that it wouldn't be interfering with the bandsaw blade. And one way I did that was I went ahead and cut that kerf. Turned the saw on and cut this as I rotated. As soon as the tip of the blade hit that point right there, then I stopped. Put a piece of double sticky tape here, and I pressed a block on there. That is my stop. I put a screw in it because I want it to stay there. I don't want to glue that down because there might be future uses where you have a different position for that. And when I come back here, that stop actually stopped me where I know I'm clear, and now I can pull the piece back if I need to. Otherwise you don't want to try to pull it back while that's still in there. Alright, here's the boards for our segments. There's 12 pieces. There's 6 cambia oak, 6 alder. They're both about the same density, so it should cut about the same. They're 4 1/16 by 2 3/8. Thickness, you can use anything from 3/4 to 1 inch thick. I'm not sure I would go much more than an inch until you've made a few of these. What is kind of critical here is you want the grain to run this direction on your pieces, because when you cut that radius in there, you're going to be doing a cross cut. That'll cut a lot better than if the grain was running this way. You're cutting with the grain, you're ripping, blade could wander a lot easier than cross cutting. Another thing you might consider doing when you're doing your first one is maybe use some 3/4 MDF and cut a practice circle to make sure all your holes are in the right place, because that's also very critical to this work. So here's the process I use to cut these segments. The very first one will overlap my locator here. I could swing it out of the way, but I find it just as easy to put a shim underneath it. And we only have to do this on this piece. I'm going to bring that in, clamp it down, Now we'll cut our first one. You want to cut fairly slow. You can feel whether it's cutting good or not. Notice that stop. Very important because I've stopped right at the end of that cut. I also find it easier to lift this up and pull the piece out. Now we can take this out. We don't need it anymore. You also have to watch. The groove will collect sawdust, and if you pull back it can jam. Alright, so I will now take this piece we just cut, hold it against my locator, and you can see the radius fits just right. I took the piece that came off of there and I cut it into a couple smaller pieces. This one I'll use down here to wedge that end, and this one, after I make the next cut, I'll have a better piece. These want to be the same height as what that is, and we will be able to do that shortly. Now we're going to take the dark piece of wood, which is a Cambia oak, we'll clamp that down. So now we're holding both pieces down. We're going to cut this one, be the outside of it, to be the inside of here. Let's go ahead and do that. This one here, it works better to stop where you're at and get it out. We can pull these out. Now this will be my wedge on that end. Won't need that one anymore. We'll keep this. This one's completed. Alright, we'll take piece number 2, and put it here, and this little piece I'm using for a wedge there will go against that. Now this is the one that I said will actually make a better wedge, and it's the trimming off of each piece. You'll have one of this. You'll have lots of them. And I just push that in there like that. It's up against nice and tight. We go back to the piece of alder, put it on here. We'll make our cut. Okay, now we'll put another one on, clamp it down, make our cut. Well, here's the first 3 segments, and the joints look really nice. I have 9 more to cut, and the cutting process will look exactly like what you just saw. So I'll get those cut and I'll bring you back and show you all 12 together. So we have 12 pieces cut now. That little piece of tape, when I stacked them like this to cut one against the other, I went ahead and numbered where they were cut. So you've got 1 and 2 and then 2 and 3 and so on. I think it's best to keep track of how you cut them, and gives you a lot better chance of everything fitting good. Now that fixture, I made it, and this is the first thing that was cut on it. I'm just hoping they all close up. As you do this, if it doesn't look like it lined up, that doesn't mean it's not going to, because they have to shift around and get centered up, which this is doing right now. So that just shows me right now I know that's going to tighten up and we're going to have good joints. I'm going to go ahead and glue it together, and then we're just about done. So I'll see you after this is all glued up. This video is really about making the fixture for these segments, but I still will show you the glue up of this because I do plan on making a turning by the time we're done. And if you need more information on how I glued this, you can watch my previous video on a Vortex Bowl, and I go into more detail there. So once I had the band clamp on and hammered those down so they're pretty flat, I cleaned the glue off, and then I could inspect all the joints. And I found that if you get a clamp across 3 different directions, plus this band clamp, it just pulled everything together, so we have nice tight glue joints now. Here I'm using the guide that I made for cutting the rings after it's already glued together, and it works quite well. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it because it would really take a video in itself to describe how I made that. It was very easy to line these rings up and get them glued. After it sat for a while, I put it back in the lathe, and I'm using this board to clamp them tight so we have a good glue joint. I'm going to show you a little bit of the turning, but it's going to be in high speed because, like I said before, this video is getting really long. And if you want to see one of these turned, I'll put a link in the description on the first one that I did, and you'll see the complete turning there and all of the glue up as well. I reached the sanding stage, so I'll show you a little bit of that. And now we're actually putting the finish on it. I'll get this all polished up, and I'll be right back and show you what we have. Well, here's the finished turning, and I wasn't really going to talk much about it, but it turned out so nice I thought I'd tell you a little bit about it. I actually was going to just turn a flat disc and turn a dish out of it, because the whole video was about making these segments. But I decided to cut it into 2 pieces and stack it, and that certainly gives it a really interesting look. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. And it ended up 7 3/4 in diameter and 1 3/4 inches tall. But this is what we were doing right here. So this was a lot of work making this video. So I hope it was helpful and you enjoyed it. If it was, do me a favor. I would like you to share this video with as many people and in as many places as you can, because I would love to see anyone that wants to do this be able to. Well, I hope you liked the video. If you did, click that like button. That'll leave me a thumbs up. Another way to let me know you liked it is leave me a comment. I enjoy reading them all. If you're not subscribed, consider doing so. And for those of you who are, thank you so much. Till the next time, see you later.